The Honorable Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court, thank you so much for your time. First of all, we promulgated a new constitution on the 27th of August 2010. Where were you at that time and what vision of the country did you have?
I was among the ecstatic Kenyans who were at Uhuru Park at the ceremony where the constitution was promulgated. You've asked about what vision I saw in the constitution. I want to say that the Kenyan constitution is one of the most progressive and transformative constitutions in the world. It has actually been built as a constitution that is now being modeled by the nascent democracies, especially on the African continent. So it's a constitution. When it was promulgated, for me, I saw like a new dawn in our country, because quite a number of things had gone wrong, and we thought we wanted a legal framework that would change that so that people can have things done in the right way. So I saw a new dawn, as it were, on that day.
Okay.
Yes.
So 10 years later, and the implementation process and of course the performance, how do you characterize that in terms of achieving the ideals that we were striving for with this constitution?
You need to look at the constitution and know that it has embraced the doctrine of separation of powers. It has demarcated the boundary lines for the arms of government and the independent institutions. So 10 years down the line, you want to ask yourself whether or not we have got our act together and the constitution has worked for us the way it should have worked. In my view, as I've said, the constitution of Kenya is one of the best constitutions in the world. If only we could implement it.
Have we implemented it fully? Are you satisfied with the extent to which we have implemented it?
No, we haven't. We haven't implemented the constitution. Any constitution is as good as its implementation. If a constitution has a Bill of Rights and has no mechanism of enforcing those the Bill of Rights, it is a hollow constitution. If a constitution lays values that are not followed, it is a hollow constitution. So for it to be a constitution that we can be happy with, we must be, as a people, be mindful of what the lawyers call constitutionalism. Constitutionalism is when a constitution is implemented in such a way that it achieves the aspirations and the values of the society. A constitution which does not achieve that and is far from achieving that is what some scholars, like the late Okoth Ogendo and Professor Nabuese, have characterized as a constitution without constitutionalism. So, I mean, we haven't implemented the constitution the way we should have done it.
Who do you think the buck stops with? Because there are three arms of government: the judiciary, which you lead, the legislature, and the executive, who have different roles in the implementation and performance process. Who does the buck stop with when it comes to fully implementing this constitution?
That is there also in the constitution. Parliament legislates. That's it, makes laws. The executive is the one charged with the responsibility of implementing. The judiciary, of course, has its also a role to play in the interpretation and the enforcement of the constitution. But the bulk of the work of implementation is that of the executive. It is the executive which has got to come up with policies that will implement the constitution. It is the executive that has got to come up with legislation that will implement the provisions of the constitution. There are some areas where lawyers say that the provisions are not self-executing. They require, they themselves on their own cannot be implemented fully. They require legislation that will enable that implementation. And the Constitution has laid that framework. So it is for the executive to come up with the policies and the legislation that will enable that implementation of the Constitution. And that responsibility is it. But the problem we have had in the past, we need to look at the history of our country. At independence, we had the Constitution, which had the separation of powers, and which gave us independence. But after that, the implementation was skewed. Based on the now, I don't know whether to call it famous or what, the section of paper number 10 of 1960, I believe it was 65. We have had skewed implementation. Unfortunately, the political elite have cherry-picked and started implementing the Constitution in areas where, first and foremost, they would reap some benefits, and those ones which were not contentious and which didn't really create any problem. As a result of that skewed implementation, quite a number of Kenyans were terribly disenchanted with the Constitution. They lost confidence in the Constitution, and that is what brought about the clamour for the change of the Constitution.
And when you talk about disputes and conflicts and them being brought to the courts to determine, I think there are a couple of occasions when the rule of law has really been tested in this country. Yes. And one of them was the 2017 election, when the court, the Supreme Court, led by you, issued a ruling that annulled the presidential election. How do you think we performed when it comes to the rule of law from that experience alone?
Sometimes, you know, it's a little difficult to talk about your own judgment. But let me say this. Elections world over are very, very competitive, especially on the African continent. The position of the presidency comes with a lot of influence. That influence cascades down to all elective positions. So during the elections, everybody wants to be elected, those who are candidates. The incumbent president will do anything he will even use the state machinery to get re-elected. The political parties go to, wild extents of making sure they get elected. The electorate themselves, having been promised of goodies, yes, go wild. So they become very, very, very competitive. Now, going by the experience we had in 2007, 2008, and here we had a disputed presidential election. The majority of the Supreme Court were very clear in their minds. We don't want to return our country to the 2007, 2008 experience. So we must follow the law. So we were firm on that, and when we found that the election had not been held properly in accordance with the Constitution, you know, there was that claim that, look, you have not even counted the votes. The president got the majority votes and says, we said, fine, he may have gotten that, but the means to the end is as important as the end itself.
You look back at that, do you still stand by the six of you who made that decision and led by you? Do you still stand by the decision that you made to this day, 3 years later nearly?
I stand by that the decision. You bring it even 10 years after now, I will still, on the evidence that was given before us, I will still come to the same conclusion.
Okay.
Yes.
Yet based on that, a lot of things have happened. Just a couple of days after the president promised to revisit and to show you and the court for, quote unquote, overturning the will of the people. What is your relationship, personal relationship with the president as a result of that?
I have no problem with the president. I have no problem with the president. You remember even when that revisit remark was made, I invited the president and he was gracious. He came to the judiciary. We had a function, and he came to the judiciary. And in his address, he said, "Look, CJ, some of these remarks were made in the heat of the moment. Let's go on and work. You wear thick skin." Those were the president's words. I have no problem with the president. I have no problem with the president as a person. And even in the other issues that we appear not to be reading from the same page, I have no problem with the president as a person. I have a problem with the exercise of the powers that are there.
So many things have happened since then. We've had points of conflict between the executive and the judiciary. Do you think some revisiting is being done?
I can't say yes or no to that, in that. But when you see a trend, it tells you, it speaks on its own. A few things we have experienced leave me wondering whether or not this threat is being followed. We have the issue of the funds for the judiciary, for example. It has persisted even before I became CJ. Not many people understand that financial autonomy to the judiciary is a critical aspect of judicial independence.
Yes, and the judiciary fund.
The judiciary fund. Mm-hmm. And because of the challenges that the country went through, the judiciary went through even in the past, before even the 2010 Constitution, the makers of the Constitution put that in Article 173, that the judiciary has got to have its own fund account. So that immediately after the budget is passed, the judiciary fund, the judiciary budget is supposed to be deposited in the judiciary account to enable it to operate smoothly without any challenges. That has not happened. We have a few challenges, but we are working on that. The reason for that is this: when you have conflicts with the government, with the executive, as is bound to be the case, sometimes you get budget cuts. You have heard of this case, people saying, look, budget cuts are across the board. You've got to look at the percentage of the judiciary budget and look at the budget, how it is cut across the board. It hits the judiciary sometimes to a point that it grinds its operations to a halt.
For a certain financial year, it was nearly half.
Yes, it was nearly half. First of all, the judiciary does not get even 1% of the national budget. Something extremely unfortunate. And we have said over and over again that for the judiciary to operate properly as it is required to operate, we should get at least 2.5% of the national budget. You know, the 2.5% of the national budget, what it will work? Now the national budget is about 3 trillion. 2.5% will not even get to 40 billion shillings. And we are talking about an arm of government. And sometimes some people misunderstand me and think that the judiciary is asking for too much. We are not asking. That budget is not equivalent to the budget of education, Ministry of Education. And we understand the outlay which goes into the Ministry of Education. It is not equivalent to the budget of the Ministry of Health. And we understand that. But when you give an arm of government less than 1% of the national budget, and then when the budget, the cuts come, they are cut even by half. What are you talking about?
On the issue of the appointment of 41 judges, the JSC has made its recommendation to the president. who is the appointing authority, and the president has declined based on certain reasons which he has quoted, integrity of some of the appointees. And you've come out to defend the position of the JSC and the judiciary by extension by saying the president, by law, deserves to actually appoint and swear in these judges. He hasn't done that. How does that make you feel?
Of course, I'm disappointed. And it makes me wonder how, how the president can ignore such an important issue. Of course, there are those claims that the judges, some of them have integrity issues. Those integrity issues have never been revealed to me, even in confidence. Even in confidence. Eh? And we have said, look, swear them. The law requires the president to swear the judges. Thereafter, immediately they are in the office, get petitions to the JSC to remove them. And I have given the assurance that in relation to these particular ones, if they are sworn in and there are petitions, JSC will give priority to those petitions and deal with those cases. Remember, some of the judges, those ones they say have many issues, are actually serving judges. The question I ask myself is, a judge who has integrity, is he better off serving in a high court than serving in the Court of Appeal? In fact, if anything, he will do more harm in the High Court where he sits alone than in the Court of Appeal where he will sit with the other judges who will tell him, look, no, that we can't go by your views. So that is an issue that is there, and I think, in my view, the president has not been well advised on this.
The Attorney General came out to defend the position of the executive on this matter, and they said the president reserves the right as the appointing authority. And Article 172, Clause 1A of the Constitution says the JSC shall recommend names for appointment to the president. And the president is sitting there and thinking, if I reserve the right, appointing authority, if I have issues with them, I won't appoint them. So is this an issue of understanding and interpretation of what the law says, do you think?
That issue has been the subject of court cases. Two, actually.
Yes.
Some decided by judges of benches of 5. That argument has been put before the court. The AGs has put that argument before the court, but it has been dismissed. As a country that is ruled by the rule of law, you have got to accept the court decisions even when you don't like them. Mm-hmm. In this case, the courts have given their views on that, and in my view, that is a matter which is concluded. Which is concluded. It is up to the president to decide what he wants to do.
You tried to meet him at some point. In fact, you made overtures, and you said he was avoiding you. Have you met him since then?
No.
Have you tried to reach out?
Yes.
What is the response?
I have not been given an appointment.
But is there any response?
No, not really. Yeah.
Okay. The other incident, I think, which you've spoken about, and the judiciary at large, is the Miguna deportation saga, which the court, of course, has issued rulings on this in January of this year and said, allow the gentleman to come back, give him his passport, and allow him to come back on an ID. That hasn't happened. There was another incident where he was held up at the airport in Germany and in France when there was a clearance. Disobedience of court orders.
There is an aspect of Miguna's case which is still in court. So I will not say much about that particular one. But what I want to say is about the disobedience of court orders. That is a serious issue. It is actually an abrogation of the Constitution. It is an abrogation of the Constitution. When you don't obey court orders, particularly as government officials, when the government officials go throwing the court orders as pieces of paper, what are you telling the people? Are you telling the people that we have two sets of laws? One for the wananchi and the other one for government officials? That is a very serious issue, and it is an issue which can lead to anarchy. And you know, when we talk about disobedience of court orders, in most cases, most people's minds go to the case of Miguna, these politicians and others. Let me tell you, there are many cases that wananchi are suffering a great deal. Somebody has taken a land case to court. It has taken him, say, about 10 years, and he has got judgment. To enforce that judgment, sometimes you need the assistance of the police. When the police are given the court orders, it's like they also start another case. They want to say, look, was this case decided properly, and things like that. And we have had those kind of cases, very many of them. There are others where the government has been taken to court and the courts have given judgments against the government for payment of damages. Some of them are damages of injury. People who have been maimed and the government doesn't pay. You try to get orders against the PSS, those orders are ignored. And those people are there. Some of them have died without reaping the benefits of their judgments. For me, that's a very serious issue. As a government, what moral authority do you have to ask the people to obey the law that you are not obeying yourself? That's a very serious issue, and it's an issue which can lead to anarchy.
We are taking a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to a discussion with the Honorable Chief Justice David Maraga. Based on these experiences, the appointment of 41 judges, separation of powers, issues of disobedience of court orders, do you think this country is governed by the rule of law?
The country is governed by the rule of law. A majority of the Kenyans obey the law. Obey the law. It is only a few government officials who are disobeying the rule of law, and some people have taken the cue from that. And sometimes they come to court, they want to take the court in circles. They don't want to, when there's a judgment against them, they want to come with all manner of applications because they don't want to obey, because they have seen what the government is doing.
On a scale of 1 to 10 then, how do you rate us on this principle of the rule of law?
I would say, 60% of all of us are obeying the law. And the issue of impunity, that you see everywhere, is as a result of the way the government behaves.
On the principle of separation of powers and independence of the three arms, how do you rate us?
We have not done very well. You know, for there to be proper balance of power, everybody has to obey the law without exception. And we should make it in such a way as it is in other civilized countries, that people fear the law more than they fear anybody else. In other countries, you know, if you go over speeding, your license will go away and you will not drive, because that will be enforced. In Kenya, people commit crimes because they can get away with them. The plunder we have of public resources, the theft we have of public resources, is because we have that culture of not obeying the law, and you get to a point that the people will dare you and say, look, I can go ahead and do this. Some of them in the hope that they will even tire the witnesses, and the enforcement is not going to be there. And they actually have a strong belief that they can get away with it, and some of them get away with it. So if we don't say no to impunity and enforce the law strictly, we will remain where we are and we will not advance.
You mentioned the issue of corruption and plunder of public resources. And the new constitution, the 2010 constitution, came up with laws and institutions that were responsible for the fight against graft. Yet, several years later, the judiciary again is being blamed for the sluggish pace with which we are prosecuting some of these cases. How do you respond to that?
That's a very good question. I don't want to say that the judiciary is perfect. We have our own challenges. Some of our judicial officers, very few of them, have not lived up to their oath of office. And unfortunately, they have been, you see the way they are handling some cases and you wonder. But the majority of the judges and magistrates have done a splendid job. The judiciary, as in the past, some people have said that the judiciary is the weak link. Weak link in the justice chain. The judiciary doesn't go getting cases from out there to come and hear them. The cases are brought by the police and then they are prosecuted by the DPP. The judiciary will go by the evidence. That's what the rule of law is all about. If you bring a strong case, there will be a conviction. If you don't bring a strong case and the evidence is tampered with at the stage of investigation, the courts will throw away those cases. And then the people see the judiciary at the end. They don't understand. And I wanted to tell the Kenyans that some of these judgments, some of people, you are an enlightened person. Read some of those judgments where we have dismissed those cases, and you will see that there was no evidence placed before us. So corruption can only be won if there are proper investigations carried out and the cases are presented properly. The courts are ready and they are working to give the Kenyans results in that.
So in your view as the judiciary, you're saying that the judiciary is being blamed for this wrongfully when the other agencies that are playing their part in terms of collecting the evidence and bringing the cases to court are not doing a better job when it comes to that, and yet the judiciary is being blamed for that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. In some instances, yes. Actually, in most instances, yes. Yeah.
But what do you say about cases where
you talked about the sluggish way of doing cases.
Exactly.
That brings me to the number of magistrates and judges we have. We have very, very many cases coming to court. We have an average of 400,000 cases being filed in our courts every year. The number of judges and magistrates we have, best as we try, we can only dispose of about 300,000. So that tells you that the cases, the backlog, will continue piling up. In Kenya now, with the population of about 48 million, we have one judge serving over 300,000 people and one magistrate serving over 77,000 people. Against the global average, and that average is there even in quite a number of African countries like Nigeria, like South Africa. The ratio is reasonable. So unless the judiciary is given enough resources to have enough manpower, the Kenyans will continue crying. Some of them say, look, Maraga has not done this. Okay, I'm going out in a few months. We will see. Unless there is change, that problem will persist and persist.
So from my understanding, you're saying the sluggish nature in which the adjudication and prosecution of these cases is being done is because of capacity limitations on the part of the judiciary. But what do you say about those quote-unquote bad apples that you are talking about? Because they are the ones, the judges who are, issuing orders that are neither here nor there, that are actually spoiling the good image of the judiciary.
Yes.
What are you doing about such cases then?
Mr. Nyabola, yes. Think back and see Of the three arms of government, the one which has pressed its people very hard is the judiciary. We dismiss a number of magistrates. We have taken judges through cases, and some of them have gone to the tribunals. We hold our people to account. Where there is evidence, unfortunately, we also get some cases where people come and say, look, this judge or this magistrate is corrupt. We tell him, look, please come, give us evidence. And then they don't want to come. That's where we have a problem. But where there is evidence, the Judicial Service Commission has acted, and those judges have been held to account.
Some of them are coming so close to you in the shape of, including your own deputy, accusations here and there. Of course, we know what happened with that as regards the investigations and all of that. In terms of perception and as an image of the judiciary, when these kinds of things happen, do you think the public has confidence in your institution when they see these kinds of things?
I don't want to speak about the Deputy Chief Justice's case because it's a matter ongoing. Yes. But I want you to remember, you know how many cases have been filed, how many petitions have been filed against me as CJ, as head of the judiciary. Some have come, of course, most of them are wild. Some have come here, the CJ has undermined the Constitution, the CJ has done this, the CJ has done. I've gone through those. Some of them have faced them head on and they have been thrown out. So what I'm saying is that the judiciary as the arm of government is the one which has been held to account more than any other arm. More than any other arm. So these are officers of other arms of government who are not obeying the Constitution. They are not being held to account.
The personal attacks that you have experienced, we have seen posters and billboards on some of the busiest highways attacking you. We have seen a woman emerge out of the blue and accuse you of all manner of things. From a personal level, how do you feel about these kinds of things? You being attacked that directly and specifically on your person and character?
Of course, at times I've been irritated about that. But I want to say this. I have actually enjoyed working as the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya.
Yes.
Why? One time, some officers paid me a courtesy call in my office. That was a day when there were several social media clips going around, calling me this or that. And then as we were finishing and they were walking out, says, CJ, you are doing a good job. I said, man, doing a good job when you people are abusing me left, right, and center. And one of them said, CJ, please, you are being abused for us. You're being taken through this for Wanjiku. I will never forget that remark. Okay. Some of those these attacks are all meant to influence my decisions, to make me change from my convictions. If anything, let me tell you that they emboldened me. The latest being that one of some girl alleging that I had an affair with her. You know, it was so crude. It was so crude that the Kenyans, I'm happy, dismissed it even before the end of the day. And I think it is because of the uproar that was there in the social media and the Kenyans, that those who were propagating it, in fact, were ashamed and they withdrew it. And they stopped that. So that's why I was telling you that some of these attacks, some of the allegations being made against me are so ridiculous that sometimes you don't even need to answer them. You just leave them die on their own and go on. They are supposed to influence the way I make decisions. And as I said, they will not. In any case, I'm about to get out.
You retire in a couple of months. In fact, on the 12th of January 2021, you turn 70 constitutionally, then you're supposed to retire. When you look back at the last 4 years, would you say you have achieved what you set out to when you took over as Chief Justice?
Yes and no. I have done my very best. I have, in my view, tried my best to hold the independence of the judiciary for it to perform by making sure that the external attacks are faced on, head on. And we have done quite a number of programs that have achieved. One of them, which we are doing right now, is the ICT, harnessing ICT. We have gone digital, and in a few days we have a few challenges. Teething problems here and there, but in a few days you will be able to file cases from the comfort of your home and move on with the cases.
Would you say that you've left the judiciary a much better institution than you found it?
Yes, I would say, as far as I'm concerned, we have wonderful judges and magistrates, people of integrity. As I said, a majority of them, over 90%, are people of integrity doing cases. You have seen the kind of orders we are issuing. Judges have been brave, and they have been, some of them, and those are some of the cases which have brought conflict to us. You get government projects designed in such a way that they are meant to benefit some particular people. Then those challenges come to court because of the procurement processes followed. When we give orders, there is an uproar that we are stagnating government projects. We are not. The judiciary is not interested. The judiciary actually should assist the government to move on without compromising its independence. And we have given judgments which are quite bold. If all that requires to be done is the judiciary to be facilitated fully, and it will do a good job.
Who is David Maraga beyond the public face that we see in the work that you do? Who is David Maraga as a person?
David Maraga is a Kenyan, like any other Kenyan. I enjoy my privacy, which I've not had since for the last 4 years.
Yes.
And I live a life where I enjoy. I go to church, worship with other people.
Do you preach?
Yes, occasionally I do. When I've been called upon to speak, I have spoken.
How do they view you in church? You're the Chief Justice. When you stand there, do they separate between this is the Chief Justice and this is perhaps a member of the congregation?
That I will not be able to answer because it is other people. It is other people's view. But I enjoy the respect they have given me. I enjoy the cordial relationship I have had with the people, and I'm a very happy person.
What do you do in your free time as a hobby?
In my free time, I enjoy reading. I even watch football.
Okay, your favorite team?
My favorite team is Arsenal.
You must have double trouble as CJ having problems and also as Arsenal also failing you.
Yeah, well, but it has been there. And I took a liking for it. Maybe because there's one time my daughter was living very close to Arsenal Stadium in London. And I toured that place and I saw, I got attracted to the place. But everybody has his own team. It may not be doing very well, but you have your own team.
How do you separate work from your family life? Do you find yourself being a judge as well and a Chief Justice in your own home?
Much as my family recognizes the position I hold, they tell me that, look, you are a judge and the CJ outside the gate. come here I mean, my wife sees me as a husband, my children see me as their father. As I said, they recognize the position, and I mean, I don't come imposing orders on my family.
All right. Any closing remarks? Anything you'd like to say to Kenyans as you exit the judiciary and the public arena?
What I want to leave to the Kenyans is that let us say no to impunity. It doesn't matter from where it is coming. Let us say no to impunity. Let us hold everybody to account. There are some people, some politicians and some political elites who are living in the past. It's like we are still in the era of what do they call the presidency? The imperial presidency.
Yes.
Eh? Where you give an order and it is followed. The enlightenment the Kenyans have achieved, you're not going to get away with some of these things. The Kenyans are too enlightened. You do something, you will get the Umtatas and others come to court and question your act. In other countries, government officials freed over orders of contempt of court. In Kenya, it is the other way around. The Otadu attitude that we have must end, and those who think that they can still go on, you are just living in the past. Kenya is going to move on. This constitution is going to continue being reinforced, and as far as I'm concerned, we are getting to a stage where nobody will get away with an act an illegal act that he commits. And if we do that, let me tell you, we will attract investment to our country. We will, everybody will enjoy their rights, and we will prosper.
Based on that, the first words of the Constitution, the preamble, says, "We the people." What do you think is the significance of those words on the ideals that we are striving for?
The power of the power in Kenya belongs to the people. Those who exercise it, like the CJ, are delegates, and a delegate you have got to bear in mind the interests of the principle. So it is the people. The power belongs to the people, and that's why I'm saying, if we all enforce the law the way it is required, we will have everybody accounting for his acts, and we will enjoy.
Yes. Thank you so much, the Honorable Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.